Planning is very important for Virginia and its localities.
There's so many different issues throughout the state.
Planning is never static, it's always changing.
It's overpoweringly important in an area that's experiencing heavy development.
As an average citizen or a resident of the county, I feel a responsibility to make sure that we take care of the county.
Without a plan, you have no vision.
It's extremely important in those areas for us to be informed of what's going on and how to plan better for the future, for our children and the future generations.
What makes a good community is a community that can work for the people that inhabit it now and will be coming into the future.
I think some of the challenges that we are all facing in Virginia, again, are just trying to manage growth responsibly.
If you're concerned about roads, if you're concerned about schools, if you're concerned about parks, if you're concerned about whether your house will continue to be in an area that has trees around it.
One real challenge is resources.
Water, for instance, is an issue in several parts of the state already.
Agricultural preservation.
What's there in the way of public facilities?
If you have economic development, that's good, but if you have no roads, if you have no people to work, if you don't plan, then it will not be successful.
Community planning in Virginia can be traced back to the first English settlement at Jamestown. No one who stepped onto the shores of the New World in 1607 could have envisioned the challenges facing Virginia today, but it is clear they came with a purpose and a plan for how they would live and prosper as a community. Since then, every generation has had an opportunity to contribute to the look and feel of their own community. Today, the community development process is guided by a set of practices commonly referred to as land use planning and zoning. The basic principles are the same as they were in 1607, to plan for the health, safety, and welfare of all citizens.
We have the wonderful example of colonial Williamsburg. Governor Nicholson had the great foresight to think about the street layout, the relationship again of residences to businesses, and open space.
We're here at Market Square, which is a part of Nicholson's original plan. It's centrally located in the town along the center street. This is, in the 18th century, a bustling scene of activity every single day.
The sense of place is very important to Williamsburg and has been since colonial times when the city was founded in 1699. It's been an integral part of our comprehensive planning process since our first plan in 1953.
In 1950, in Northern Virginia, the beginnings of urbanization or suburbanization were well entrenched. This group of individuals, sensing that change was about to descend upon their community, decided that there ought to be dialogue, there ought to be a discussion of how we are going to manage the change that is inevitably coming our way. Communities that had been idyllic since almost revolutionary times were now going to have to prepare for a change, a wave of change in the form of people, cars, houses, and businesses.
Many of today's principles and practices of planning have become law. Every county, town, and city in Virginia must have a planning commission. If a community has adopted a zoning ordinance, they must also appoint a board of zoning appeals. The cornerstone of the planning process, however, is the comprehensive plan. This mandatory plan addresses current growth and development issues in addition to forecasting future growth and development.
A comprehensive plan for a community is their blueprint or guide to where they want to go in the next 10 or 15 years.
It sets the framework for a locality's long-range land use objectives.
Comprehensive plans are supposed to be updated by statute every 5 years, and we think that's absolutely essential, especially in many of the growing communities in Virginia.
The comprehensive plan for a city, county, or town is the one document and the one process that connects all parts of the community to each other.
It's a very important, the most important legal document that a community has.
It sets the guidelines, it sets the parameters, and it needs to be regarded as a very important planning tool.
The local planning commission, composed of citizens appointed by the local governing body, is charged with the responsibility of preparing the comprehensive plan.
It's at the discretion of the governing body as to who they appoint. The Code of the Commonwealth of Virginia does not say we must have 2 homemakers, 2 persons 65 or over. We must have a real estate agent. We must have an engineer. We must have a former, Little League baseball star. It's at the discretion of the governing body as to who gets appointed to the Planning Commission.
Planning commissioners in the state of Virginia are either volunteers or they're picked and talked into joining. They come from a variety of backgrounds.
Our current Planning Commission has economists and bankers and lawyers and educators.
They bring to it a certain degree of reality to the Planning Commission.
But they're not familiar with the law as it applies and as it evolves in the state.
It's somewhat overwhelming initially to try to be familiar with zoning ordinances, comprehensive plan issues.
It's hard for somebody that doesn't have that background to work within those processes and procedures if they don't understand them. It would be like a surgeon trying to conduct surgery without going to medical school.
Anyone who gets on a planning commission or an appointed or a public official, if they don't get themselves educated on what they're doing, they're lost.
New laws are always evolving, and if we don't really know what they are, we're perhaps leaving at the table some tools that would help us to be better prepared to plan for the future.
The first thing that I think that anyone who is interested in planning needs to do is learn the framework in Virginia.
They need to understand their community and the planning process.
You've got to bring good judgment and analytical skills, and you've got to have the ability to look far out and have a vision.
It is daunting. It requires a great deal of patience. It requires a great deal of willingness to research, to spend the time to read through the information that's provided. It requires some creativity. It also requires a healthy respect for what the legal parameters are.
The goal of our association through the design and administration of the certification program is to shed some light on the planning process and how a planning commissioner can go about discharging the critical public trust that has been extended to him or her.
Whether you're a member of a planning commission, an elected official, or a concerned citizen, the Citizens Planning Education Association of Virginia is there to help. From seminars, conferences, and the award-winning Certified Planning Commissioner program, the opportunity to learn the planning process is available to everyone.
The training sessions for me have been extraordinary. I've been on the Planning Commission now 4 years, and it's not been until this year, and specifically the kinds of training that come through CPEAB, that make me a little bit more confident in the job that I do.
There's a lot of years of planning represented here, a lot of experience from all parts of the state.
We get to learn about the most modern techniques and other sufferings from other commissioners that we can say we don't need to reinvent that wheel.
The training sessions give us a great opportunity to get together and go through those cases and those issues that we're all going to have eventually.
You can get together through the networking process and realize what other folks have done to resolve their problems and probably apply many of those thoughts and ideas to the solution of your own.
Our Board of Supervisors and Planning Commissioners have absolutely benefited from planning education. They come into board meetings and Planning Commission meetings armed with the information they need to talk about the issues of the day and to evaluate the proposals.
Having a base of expertise to build upon is very important, and that's why we strongly encourage all of our commission members to attend the Certified Planning Commissioners program.
A community is an assemblage of buildings and structures and its pavement and its trees, but the critical element is people.
You need to know what your community wants to see. Where do they want to have growth? Where do they want to have recreational or conservation areas? What are they willing to provide for?
When I started as a city planner back in the early 1970s, planning was sort of a shirt and tie exercise, and you talk to other people in shirt and ties. Civic engagement, what did that mean? Generally, you didn't engage the public in the planning exercise. Today, we cannot successfully engage in a community planning exercise without opening up the process to the public.
In the last 25 years, the public has become more active and involved in the community planning process. Community leaders, now more than ever, need the input and perspective that only their citizens can supply. And thanks to the Citizens Planning Education Association of Virginia, more and more people are prepared to help Plan Virginia.
We feel that there's a central role that we can play through discussing the importance and value of planning so that everyday Virginians will become not only knowledgeable but hopefully engaged in the enterprise of placemaking at the local level. The evidence of the past 100 years has given rise to the reality that planning is essential.
Planning now is a balance between the last generation, the needs of the present generation, and the demands of the future generation.
I think the environment is going to be a bigger issue probably than it was when I started on the Planning Commission.
How do we provide housing, transportation, water?
Sensible planning requires a good deal of anticipation.
You're trying to balance the necessity for growth with also the necessity to preserve the quality of life that brought you here to begin with.
If a locality doesn't plan, the future plans it.
Anybody that doesn't plan for the future is very short-sighted in terms of our fellow man.
The citizens, the businesses, the corporations of the Commonwealth, the institutions of learning, all have a stake, a vital stake in how Virginia manages the change that is coming our way.
When you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Not planning is not an option. We must plan for the future, and we feel as an organization we have a vital role to play in that regard.
There are 4 things that compose a good county, a good city, and that's planning, economic development, transportation, and workforce. I look at it as the 4 legs on the chair, and you miss one leg, the chair will topple over. So you all have to work together. You all got to make sure that everybody is on the same level playing field with the information so that you can communicate, whether it's somebody who is on a town, a city, or a county planning commission, whether it's your elected official, or whether it's a citizen advocacy group. We have to work together to make Virginia successful.
The sense of urgency faced by communities in 1950 is just as critical today. In 1960, Virginia had a population of about 4 million. Today, it has nearly doubled, and by the year 2030, that figure will grow to nearly 10 million. That growth will impact nearly every community. It will test our ability to provide water, sewer, power, and transportation to preserve our quality of life. If your community is to stimulate economic development and create jobs in the future, the challenge is clear. We must plan for tomorrow, today. To find out more, or to get involved in planning your community, go to www.planvirginia.com. The future of Virginia is in your hands.